In 1866, at the edge of failure, Dostoevsky met a young woman named Anna. That meeting changed everything. Without that encounter, the brothers Karamazov and the rest of Dostoevsky's great final works might never have existed. The story you're about to hear is drawn from their own words, Dostoevsky's letters and Anna's memoirs. Now then, shall we take a moment and remember where we left off? Dostoevsky was 45 years old. His elder brother, Mikhail, had left behind a mountain of debt. To repay it, Dostoevsky made a harsh pact with a most unscrupulous publisher. He had just over a year to write a brand new novel. If he failed, he would lose not only the rights to his past works, but also to everything he had yet to create. Dostoevsky, what would become of him? This is Goat Theater. Now then, let's return to our story. But how quickly a year can slip away. And now, just 1 month left. And Dostoevsky, he hadn't written a single line. I imagine you're thinking it yourself, aren't you? What in the world was he doing all that time? Maybe even wondering, was he simply being lazy? It's a fair question, but no, it wasn't like that at all. Dostoevsky had thrown himself into launching a new literary magazine, battling censorship, all while writing his masterpiece, Crime and Punishment, and fighting to negotiate away the crushing debts that weighed on him. His health suffered badly. He lived on just 5 hours of sleep a night, worn thin by the endless strain. And if you read the letters he left behind, you can feel it, every line soaked with exhaustion, urgency, and sorrow. Again and again in those letters, Dostoevsky wrote simple, apologetic words. Forgive me, I couldn't reply sooner. I was lost in my writing, you see. For Dostoevsky, writing was never just a task. It was a desperate act to catch the fleeting threads of thought before they slipped away into the void. It burned through his nerves, wore down his spirit, and drained the very life from his body. Once a thread was lost, he could never find his way back to it again. That was what he feared most, to fall sick, to collapse under the weight of epilepsy, and in that collapse, to lose forever the fragile flame of his thinking. Even writing a simple letter could become a crushing burden. To hold on to deep, burning ideas while living through endless strain, it demanded a concentration beyond ordinary human strength. And it demanded something more, the willingness to burn one's very self away. When you think about it, that Dostoevsky, even while finishing Crime and Punishment, was also trying to write another full-length novel. You realize just how reckless and just how desperate that battle truly was. And so it was that the year and some months he had been given slipped away in a blink, and Dostoevsky, with nothing written, found himself staring down the final deadline. 1 month left until November 1st. As time slipped away, a friend from the literary world came to visit Dostoevsky. His name was Milyukov. Milyukov asked him, "How far along is your new novel?" And Dostoevsky, with quiet resignation, answered, "I haven't written a single line." Milyukov, stunned, silent, unable to hide his shock and despair. But even so, his visit became an unexpected turning point. Milyukov made a suggestion. Why not hire a skilled stenographer, someone who can transcribe as you dictate? And so, a request was sent to a local stenography school. A student was chosen and sent to Dostoevsky's home. That student was Anna, the young woman who would one day become Dostoevsky's wife. Anna's heart was all aflutter. She had been offered a job as a stenographer, and not just for anyone, for the famous writer, Fyodor Dostoevsky. With expectation, with nervousness, and holding close a small, trembling uncertainty, Anna quietly accepted the offer. Anna's father was a man who loved literature. In their home, Dostoevsky's works had been read many times over. From the time she was still young, to Anna, Dostoevsky was someone both close and distant, a figure of quiet reverence. Yet, at the same time, in the depths of her heart, she could not help but wonder, could she truly keep pace with the words of such a great writer? And so, the morning of their meeting arrived. At 11:30 in the morning, Anna, her heart pounding, knocked on the door. She was but a 20-year-old stenographer, and the place she stepped into was the home of Fyodor Dostoevsky, the great literary giant where a wounded soul quietly dwelled. The very moment they first laid eyes upon each other, something stirred deep within Anna's heart. It was Dostoevsky's gaze. Ah, those eyes. They seemed like mirrors reflecting the abyss of the soul. One eye shone gently with a deep brown hue, while the other held a strange, haunting light. The pupil had widened, and the iris seemed to have melted away into shadow. I know the story behind that wound. Once, during an epileptic seizure, he fell and struck something sharp, leaving a deep, lasting scar. But listen well, that wound was not merely something to be seen. It carved a dark shadow into the very course of his life. Yet, it must not be forgotten. This epilepsy was not only a source of suffering, it was also a flame, a fire that lodged itself deep within Dostoevsky's soul. From the edge of anguish, he gazed into the deepest depths of the human heart and spun his stories from what he saw. That profound sensitivity, that piercing insight, alive even now in the work he is writing, Crime and Punishment, and in the work not yet born into this world, but destined to be spun someday. The brothers Karamazov. All of it was born from a wellspring where the shadow of epilepsy and the flame of his soul were intertwined. When Anna gazed into those eyes without knowing it, she had already turned a page of fate. Thus, the work of dictation and transcription began. Dostoevsky glanced at the movement of her pen and thought to himself, "A bit slower than I had hoped." A small flicker of disappointment passed through his mind, but Anna quietly offered, "If that's so, I will take the notes home and rewrite them more beautifully." She volunteered to take the draft back with her to carefully copy it out at night. That spirit of earnestness. It resonated deeply within Dostoevsky's heart. For him, too, it was the first time trying to weave a story through spoken dictation. His thoughts drifted like mist, and he began to pace the room in circles, as if he had forgotten Anna's presence entirely, lost wholly in contemplation. Anna, for her part, held her breath and remained seated, doing all she could not to disturb the quiet flow of that room. After 2.5 hours of work, Dostoevsky spoke. "I can no longer dictate," he said. "If you would be willing, could you come back again around 8 tonight?" And so it was decided that the dictation would resume later that evening. Anna's home was quite far away, so she chose to pass the time at a relative's house. At that time, Anna lived with her mother. And her mother, she worried greatly, wondering if this new job would go well. Anna, too, longed to send word to tell her mother how things had gone. But that day, from the moment she left home in the morning until late into the night, there was no chance to return. Today, it would take but a single phone call. But back then, such a thing was no more than a distant dream. Anna left Dostoevsky's house for the time being. During the morning visit, she had struggled with her stenography, and a shadow of unease had fallen across her heart. Would she be turned away? Would the job slip through her fingers? Such fears quietly tightened around her chest, and so carrying that weight inside her, she passed the long hours until the 8 o'clock appointment, waiting in silence at her relative's home. Her relatives, they were of course thrilled to hear that Anna would be working for the great Dostoevsky. They chatted and speculated excitedly, but Anna's heart remained quietly adrift. And so, at 8 o'clock that night, Anna returned once more to Dostoevsky's home. Dostoevsky, he had Anna sit at his own writing desk, and that desk was the very one where Crime and Punishment had been written. Anna, gazing at it, was filled with quiet awe. To think, I might work at this desk, she thought to herself, deeply moved. Over tea, Dostoevsky began to speak quietly of a time in his youth when, at 28 years of age, he had been arrested as a political criminal and sentenced to death. Anna, in her memoirs, would later recall it this way. Dostoevsky's story was painful, and it sent a shiver through me. But what struck me even more was how, despite having just met me, a young woman, he spoke so sincerely, so tenderly, as if from the depths of his heart. There was something quietly wondrous about it. Thus, did Anna remember it? Dostoevsky's unguarded honesty and the deep earnestness of his heart, they seeped into Anna's heart, quietly and deeply. That night's visit, before anyone noticed, had stretched all the way to 11 o'clock at night. She had first arrived at 11:30 in the morning, but the hours slipped by like a quiet stream, and by the time she looked up, the night had grown deep. Before leaving home, Anna had told her mother, "I'll come straight back from Dostoevsky's house." Now, even as she sat there, a quiet worry stirred within her. She knew her mother must be waiting, concern rising with each passing hour. And yet, still, she remained, listening gently to Dostoevsky's voice matching his rhythm, and letting the night carry them both. When she finally returned home, Anna spoke to her mother with great excitement. She told her again and again how sincere Dostoevsky had been, How warm, how utterly genuine in his manner. The words poured out of her without pause or end. That was the first day, the very first day of Anna and Dostoevsky's meeting. Later, in her memoirs, Anna would write these words: "For the first time in my life, I saw someone who was wise and good, and yet abandoned by everything in this world. A deep feeling of sympathy and pity welled up inside me." And so, a door quietly opened. From the very next day, Anna began to visit Dostoevsky's home to help him, through dictation, with a new long-form novel, The Gambler. The distance between them slowly, gently, began to close. Now then, where might this meeting lead? What lies ahead, just past the edge of this quiet beginning? This is Goat Theater.